Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back in. Thanks for joining us tonight on a lovely Wednesday evening. It is July 2nd. We are cold. None of us are down in
Mhm.
Sydney, so we're still alive and surviving. Gents, Mav, how are you going this week, mate? And you keeping warm, I hope.
Yeah, always. Well, it's bloody cold down in Melbourne at the moment. Just every morning getting up, it's just freezing. But yeah, going well, mate. Not too far away now till football. We got 10 Sundays to go. I think it is to be
Yeah.
exact. On Mondays as such in the Australian terms, but until football is back. So we'll have to start creating some fantasy leagues for the community, Patreon and the community at some point over the next week or two. More information will come. But you have to get in hot. They do go pretty quick, but we'll have to create some more leagues than what we had last year because the interest, I believe, so far is absolutely peaking.
Yeah, and I think I might be capped, honestly. Like thinking about how many leagues I have now, I don't really want to take on too many redraft, but a chance to face the viewers, to face Mav and DFAB, it's so hard to pass up. But DFAB, how are you feeling when it's nearly redraft season, mate? Are you keen?
Yeah, mate. I'm as we all know, I'm a big redraft guy. I finally had currently in progress of my dynasty rookie draft. It's a bit later than I would have liked, but now that I've kind of 4 rounds into my rookie draft now, it feels like it's redraft season. I'm peaking. I heard. Can't remember what podcast I was listening to, but they said 10 weeks to go, and I felt tingles, mate. We are getting close. I cannot wait. So excited. So excited.
Mate, we're tingling. We're trying to stay warm. I completely forgot to mention, guys, this is the Insight NFL podcast. We are back. And tonight we've got our first mailbag show episode. We've had a lot of you guys reach out to us in our DMs, just slide in there, get nasty, and just throwing us, some questions based around fantasy, general topics. And yeah, we've got them all here together tonight, and we're going to be answering as best as we can. And if you do have any questions yourself, please just drop them down in the comments below of this video. We'll start adding them for the next mailbag show that comes up in the future, or like all the thirsty gents out there, jump in the DMs, send us something. We'll get it added and we'll go from there. But as always, before we roll in to the meats of the show, got to start off with the potatoes. We've got the news, and we've had a few things that have transpired over the last couple of days, and they've been honestly a pretty big impact for fantasy. Mav's shaking his head. He's all over this news. We'll start off. Jonnu Smith, a Arthur Smith long lost brother, has been traded to the Steelers from the Miami Dolphins. I believe the Dolphins got Minka Fitzpatrick, and they also the Steelers also sent. Oh no, sorry, Dolphins sent Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith, and they got Minka Fitzpatrick and I think a pick swap. I think it was a 6th and 7th swap. Start off with you, Mav. How do you feel about Jonnu Smith at tight end 4 finish last year with Miami? How do you think, this is all looking for fantasy with him going to the Steelers?
He's sort of off the radar now, I reckon. I don't really like the fit. I mean, he's now battling with Frymuth, who's now also, again, alongside Jonnu Smith off the radar. So it's a bit of a crowded house. They might play 2 tight end sets as well. They're probably lacking a true number 2 option on that team. Maybe that is Jonnu Smith. Maybe it's not. But I did like it with Tua because they had the genuine connection. But on the flip side as well, I mean that just opens up the other options there at the Dolphins as well with Tyreek and Waddle. I think that truly benefits them. Especially Hill coming off an injury. He's getting old now as well. But we could have a serious bounce back here. I know obviously hard for his age to bounce back, but I really like it for the Dolphins end of the fantasy options. But yeah, for Jonnu Smith in itself, it's a rough thought of drafting him, I reckon, now with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think he's gone within the top 10. I think pretty consensus across the board. He was in that space for redraft, and now he's, like you said, he's off my board. He's top 20. He might be lingering. Yeah, we saw what Jonnu Smith looks like under an Arthur Smith offense back in 2023 when he was playing at the Falcons. He was tight end 17. And, he was kind of similar situation, competing with Cole Pitts, now competing with the Muth. just we've seen how this story pans out. I know for me, I'm super keen on Waddle and that upside. DFAB, I know you're on the Achane side. What do you think about this news?
Yeah, correct. Just kind of echoing what you guys said. John is dead. He's gone. He's done. He's
like
completely off my board. He's like, I listened to it. I think it was on the Fantasy Footballers. They said that anything outside tight end 7 is dust. Like, at best, it's a streaming option, but they shouldn't be someone that really gets drafted. They should be completely off your board, and they're 100% right. So Jonnu, he's a non-option. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has ever had. He may have had like an anomaly season here and there where he supported an elite tight end, but I think Jonnu's dust, especially competing with Freiermuth. There's just not enough ball to go around. Probably hurts all pass catches at the Steelers as well. Having Jonnu there, like, it's just not great news for fantasy. On the other side, I'm really big on Achane. They had a really similar ADOT, so average depth of target, for those of you that are not sickos like the three of us are. And Tua loves those little chippy dump offs over the middle. So they're his little security blanket that he cuddles up to at night, especially as he's trying to, work through all these concussions and stuff. He wants those super quick throws, get it to his skill position guys. They'll probably get some to Tyreek. They'll get some to Waddle, but the reflex option will be keep going to Achane as he already has. And then I think his volume's even going to continue to increase. To the moon for Achane. He's probably, for me, he's now a top 5 running back in redraft. PPR, probably top 3. Half PPR, he'd be top 5. It's a great thing for all skill position players at the Dolphins, and horrible for the Steelers.
Yeah, we hope with this move things are just lining up for get back to the dynamic offense that they once were a couple of years ago. On the other side of this move, with Jono going to the Steelers, old man Darren Waller is come out of retirement and he joins the Dolphins. I think they traded with the Giants a late pick to get Darren Waller's rights, and then they signed him to a 1-year, $5 million deal. I know for me, I dropped a post on X. He's worth a flyer. If he's in your leagues on waiver wire, I think he's just worth a pickup. If you've got a free spot, and I think, hell, if he gets those short dink-and-dunk targets, he's not the athlete that he once was. So I think that'll probably line up as best as possible. I can't see him getting 111 targets that Jonnu vacated there last year in that spot. Mav, you're shaking your head, mate. You're not a fan of the Waller. What are you thinking of this pickup?
Nah, it's a weird one for me. I mean, if you're going to make a move to get Jonnu Smith out, mate, they were in talks with Michael Mayer for a while, and Michael Mayer would have cost them nothing in a trade, maybe some pick swaps or something like that, or a 6th rounder or something like that, something late, like a late day 3 pick would have been a good option as well, because I think Michael Mayer is actually quite talented. He's just, again, stuck now behind Brock Bowers, but no, I don't really. I'm not really big on the old Walrus at this point of his career. He's coming out of retirement now. He's been out of the game for a year and a half now, I think it is. 2 years nearly. He's pretty cooked. I don't know if he's going to have much value between the arcs, between the red zone, between the 20s. I don't think he'll have much options. This guy was in pain for the majority of his late career, so you'd imagine that the only impact that he's going to have for a big tight end that's mobile like himself might be in the red zone, but it's hard to really say what the value is going to be for Waller. So no, I don't think he's going to be your 7 to 8 target tight end that you're thinking that he might be what he was back in his prime, I suppose. But he's just going to be a shell of himself. It's so hard to come back from at this age with his body and be productive in fantasy football.
Yeah, and it's been such a long time since he has produced. Just looking at it now, back in 2020, that was his last full season. He was at the Raiders. He did finish as a tight end 2 overall, but as soon as he just kind of hit the peak, he fell off a cliff. A couple of poor injury-riddled years after that with the Vegas, and then when he joined the Giants, he did absolutely nothing. And I heard a quote of him saying too, he knew it was time to retire when the Giants had him lining up at fullback and blocking on a lot of players. So he's probably going to be asked to do that at Miami. DFAB, how are you feeling about Waller? Is he really nothing to you, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, he was nothing before he left, to be honest. I think he's probably going to be a fun person to bet on for any time touchdown scorer for the year to come, because he probably is going to get looks in the red zone just because he's a big target. And I don't really think you lose your hands. Like, you lose the ability, you lose your first step, you lose your ability to get vertical, but your hands typically stay. So I think he's still going to be able to catch a ball, run off the line. I don't think he was ever really an elite blocker anyway, so you probably won't get too many opportunities. Have a fun punt on him here and there, but fantasy irrelevant.
Yeah, but hey, if he's on your waiver, I'm not backing down. Scoop him up for nothing. Who knows, if he has one or two decent games, you could probably get a fourth or a fifth or something with it. It's just, we're trying to just add those assets for nothing. And I know for me, a couple of my leagues, some people are overspending to the absolute extreme, spending upwards of 60% of their fab just to get him in. So the hype is there. All it takes is one or two games. But yeah, no, we just not on that side. We have no belief in Waller. And speaking of go Mav.
Just to just keep some tabs on Michael Mayer, as I was saying before. He's firmly in trade talks at the moment out of the Raiders. So hopefully the next sort of week or two, he moves somewhere else with a favourable spot, because I think he'd be another good trade target as well. I think he's ready to go currently. But yeah, as I said, just stuck behind Bowers. So just that's one to watch as well. He's a pass catching tight end coming out of college, and he just needs opportunity now.
Yeah, he was a second overall pick too, I believe, with the
second
Raiders.
round.
Yeah, second round, and a year before they draft just the absolute phenom, which is Brock Bowers. So he just definitely won't get an opportunity nearly on. So yeah, watch out for Michael May. You might be able to pick him up on the down low for cheap. But going back to guys that we have absolutely no belief in, Kenny Pickett, Deontay Johnson, his new teammate at the Cleveland Browns, he expects Kenny Pickett to be the QB1 to start the season. I know for me, if I'm a Browns fan, I'm hoping that this doesn't happen. I think, put a spectator out in the field ready to sling the ball instead of Kenny Pickett. I think if you're putting him out there, you're just saying, we're tanking for the 101 pick in the 2026 draft. DFAB, what are your kind of thoughts on Kenny Pickett and this overall Cleveland Browns quarterback carousel that's going on?
Smoke and mirrors, mate. I don't reckon the Cleveland Browns have any idea who it's going to be. It might be, I believe they've come out and said that they're rolling with like seniority with snap counts at training and OTA so far. So I don't think they know what's going on. There's positive reports about Sanders. There's positive reports about everyone. So yeah, smoke and mirrors. I don't think anyone knows. Just if you're in a position where you're stuck having to start a Cleveland QB, plug your nose and hold your breath and hope, because it's going to be ugly all year. It's going to be ugly all year. So yeah, stay away. Stay away.
Definitely shaping up for the running game to get a whole lot of opportunities with the QB mess that they have going on. Mav, what are your thoughts, and who are you hoping to be the QB1 at the Browns?
We need Joe Flacco. For a fantasy option, we need Joe Flacco. With Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, David Njoku, and probably a solid running game. I read an article today actually that Dylan Sampson might be a sneaky PPR player as well, which I believe that could be the case as well. But that's only going to happen if Joe Flacco starts at quarterback. So anything else is not attractive at all. Kenny Pickett, maybe he's a game manager at best, but Joe Flacco for your fantasy football teams, it has to be Joe Flacco. So, it's only training camp starting very shortly. See what happens. But I fully expect it's going to be Joe Flacco come week 1. And then if he shits the bed, that's the QB2 battle is going to be the interesting part, I reckon.
Yeah. And they've got plenty of time to work that out until their QB1, Deshaun Watson, comes back in training. I also saw, in October that they're thinking that he's going to be healthy in training, but who cares? He probably won't ever take a snap again in the NFL. I think it's probably fair to say. And for good reason. He was just absolute dust when he stepped back on the field. And Browns are going to be just, eating their socks for years to come with that deal that they made, trading away all those future first round picks and then paying him a whole bag of money for absolutely nothing. So yeah, I wonder watch how that all plays out. The last little bit of news that we've got, Terry McLaurin, there's been no progress on his contract extensions, which is sad to see. He had an absolute career year under Jaden Daniels. He had 13 passing touchdowns. I believe that was second behind Jamar Chase. He's 29, turning 30, so he's definitely on that older side. But this, we're only 3 weeks away from the Commanders' training camp start date. It's not really a good sign. We've seen how these holdouts can play. Brennan Ayuk last year didn't turn out well. And, we're all fans of Terry. We love Terry, want him to succeed. But, Mav, what are your kind of thoughts on Terry McLaurin and how this contract situation is going at the moment?
It's tough, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about landing spots now for Terry McLaurin. I've been searching him up, and we're talking about possible landing spots amid holdout. So, he's pretty firm that what he wants, obviously a big contract at the back end of his career. He's gone through the ringer with the Commanders with shit QBs along the way. Now he's finally got a good one and wants to get paid. He wants to ride that wave with Jaden Daniels, and I understand that. He's done his duties and done his service for him, but at the same time, the Commanders are saying, well, we're only paying you for what you're worth. So I think his year last year was extremely overs. I'm concerned that he won't be able to back it up, especially on his touchdown numbers. So I think that's what the Commanders are also a bit concerned with as well. But also they've got Debo as well. So, I mean, they could always just find a trade for McLaurin and get him out of there. But it's probably in their best interest that they do come to an agreement with Terry McLaurin, because are they in the window for a Super Bowl? Maybe, probably. Obviously it was they massively overachieved last year. So they're probably all up and about now going to the year. So am I concerned? Yes, I am. I'm always concerned with holdouts because you just never know how they're going to progress. Obviously being on the outer, not knowing on the inner. But I think they will come to an agreement at some point.
And you'd hope so. At the moment, he's going as wide receiver 17. If the holdout continues, you'd expect that to drop a little bit, but we're still a couple of months out from the season, so you really think that a deal will get done. DFAB, what are your thoughts on the McLaurin situation and kind of how that looks for 2025?
I kind of feel bad for McLaurin because I think he deserves a massive payday. But I always think back to for the basketball sickos, the Jalen Rose quote, you don't get paid what you're worth, you get paid what you have the leverage to negotiate. And the fact is, he's a 29 going on 30-year-old wide receiver, slightly undersized, that relies heavily on his burst and footwork. We know that especially with wide receivers, when whether it be 31, 32, whenever it hits, you fall off a cliff, right? He's not the guy that's going to be able to hang around until he's 35 because he can just out-muscle players. When his burst goes, he's done. So I don't think he has as much leverage as he maybe thinks he does and as much as he maybe deserves to get that payday. And kudos to Washington for, sticking fat and not just doing the nice thing for a guy that's been there for a long time and giving him the payday. They're very clearly thinking strategically, thinking long-term, which is good. It's concerning for fantasy that I don't know if they're going to get a deal done. I don't know if McLaurin, knowing that we're only 3 weeks out from training camp, I'm not sure if McLaurin's just going to bite the bullet and go, yeah, okay, great. And I think they'll get a deal done eventually, but I believe it was Ayuk. Correct me if I'm wrong if it was last year or the year before. I can't remember who it was, but they held out until maybe a month before the season and then got hurt week 3 and missed the majority of the year, right?
Yeah,
we see it all the time. It's not good. It's a real massive concern, whether it be just being on the field at all or injury risk increases. He becomes almost off my board if a deal's not done before training camp, which seems ridiculous. He's, as you said, wide receiver 17. He was an absolute stud last year. We know that touchdowns aren't a sticky stat, but he still had 13 last year. He's someone that you want on your squad. But yeah, if he doesn't get the deal done, and he's not at day one training camp, he's probably off my board, to be honest.
Definitely adds a lot of risk. And, in round 4, which he is going, you don't want it. You want to mitigate the risk as much as possible in those rounds. You just want to hit on those guys. You want, because they're your core pieces of your team. You can take flyers later on in the rounds that a guy's just going to be on your depth. But yeah, I know guys that drafted Ayuk, I'm pretty sure last year, and week 6 or something, he went out there and tore his ACL, I believe. They drafted him very early. And he missed out. He held out rather for a lot of training camp. So we've seen how this story goes. for all of the Jaden Daniels managers and owners out there, please sign Terry McLaurin, Commanders, and get that deal done soon. We need to see it for
Question
fantasy.
for you. Before we move on, have we ever, at least in the last 10 years that I've been doing fantasy, have we ever seen someone hold out and it be a positive?
Jamar Chase.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Is he
He's
the
an outlier.
outlier?
Yep.
Yeah. In so many ways, he's an outlier. I still can't believe that the talk on him coming in was that he had small hands and couldn't catch. Ridiculous.
CD Lamb sort of held out last year.
Yeah. It wasn't looking at it. He was in training camp. Was it after training camp though, or
was it a soft holdout? I don't think he really just didn't turn up,
like
right? He was still
midway through training camp. I remember in drafts last year. It was probably like a week, probably 2 weeks before the season started. It was Jamar Chase and CD Lamb were both holding out, and then the week after, one came to an agreement, the other one decided to play through. So, right. Yeah, I mean, you said it with Le'Veon Bell was the perfect example, right? Holding out and just complete dust after that. But we'll see what happens. But depends on what McLaurin's actually asking for. Hopefully, he's not asking for $30 million a year and being unreasonable. Hopefully, he's more looking at the 20 to 25 bracket. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, hopefully like a little 2-year deal or something. You don't think they'd offer them any more than that, but one to watch, one to definitely watch. But we'll get into the meat of tonight's show. And like we said, this is our mailbag show. We've putting together the most asked questions from you guys, and we're hoping to deliver on some answers. And we'll just go straight into this with our first question of the evening, and we'll kick off with you first, DFAB. Who'd you handcuff your main running backs on your fantasy roster?
It's a big no from me. Big no from me. It's I guess I'll add the caveat that sometimes, yes, if you've got, like, let's say you picked up Aaron Jones and you want to have Jordan Mason as a handcuff, yes, because you know that handcuff is going to produce high. There's some already discussion about, is this person going to hold the top spot? Same with James Conner and Trey Benson that we've talked about in previous episodes. Those, they have standalone value. So I don't think it qualifies as that traditional handcuff. The handcuff is that guy at the bottom of the draft that you're holding just in case you're Jonathan Taylor or someone, or even Devon Achane or whoever falls off a cliff. They blow their knee out, like akin to Nick Chubb last year, and they're Gonskis. More often than not, those guys aren't going to produce anywhere close to the first guy that you've got. 80% of the time, you're not going to need them at all. They're just going to hold a bench spot all year. And most competitive leagues nowadays, you've maybe got 3, 4, 5 bench spots. Those spots are super valuable when you get to, the bye-apocalypse where you've got, 6 teams on bye at the same time and stuff like that. If you're wasting a spot on someone that you hope might play but has 0 standalone value, I think you're only shooting yourself in the foot. Just be smarter with your fab. Be ready in case, have that in mind when you're, working through the waiver pool and when you're making bids throughout the year. But no, I would not be wasting a very valuable roster spot on someone on a just-in-case insurance.
Yeah, and I think I'm the same with you there, DFAB. I know for me, it's very situational on the handcuffs I want to go after. CMC is a prime example. All the CMC leagues that I've got, or, in leagues where I own him, I'm definitely looking at Isaac Garendo, even though it's a little bit ambiguous. They've drafted a rookie in the 4th round this year, but still Garendo is the guy. In that situation, I think it's fine. But on the other token, Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker, that running backfield, we've seen what they can do when they're both healthy. Charbonnet is worth nothing, and if that's just kind of a roster clogger at that point, it's just an insurance back, and you're kind of hoping that Kenneth Walker gets injured in that regard if you kind of have both, because you're shooting yourself in the foot. But Mav, what are your thoughts on the whole handcuff situation for your main running backs?
Yeah, it's definitely situational depending on who you've got. I mean, Ashton Genty's a true 3-down back. And I just worked out just then, Raheem Mostert's actually the backup at Vegas, which is unbelievable. I actually didn't know that. I thought it was Sincere McCormick still. But unfortunately, he doesn't hold any value at all and should not be drafted in any leagues just because of Genty's 3-down ability in the draft position they took him. But as you said, with the Niners, I agree with the Garendo. I think that CMC is a risky pick. There's also another one with the Chargers running backs. You've got Najee and Hampton there. That's a bit of a hard one. They're going at very similar spots in ADP though, so you have to draft them nearly round after round to get them. So that you probably wouldn't do that. You're probably spending a 6th and a 7th to get Najee and Hampton in, so that's a lot of draft capital to hold a handcuff. So you probably wouldn't do that. But it's all situational. If you've got a last pick in your draft, for example, and you don't know who to pick, maybe picking up the handcuff just in case something happens throughout, week 1 is not a bad thing. We saw it with Buddy Pacheco, for example. He got hurt in week 1 and didn't come back until the end of the year. So, I think if you don't know who to pick in your last round and the handcuff of your RB1 is still on the draft, I think there's a situation where you can do it, but I wouldn't be using high draft capital to do it either.
Yeah, sure. And I think, it has to be too on those running back situations where just one guy's focus, like the Rams, for instance. Kyron Williams gets all the work. I'm more inclined to take his handcuff in. But even still, it's either Kyron or Hunter, so you've got to kind of pick your flavor there. Yeah. But we know that if Kyron goes down, it's going to be one person, just because that's how that offense is kind of run. Similar to, like we mentioned with the 49ers, they highlight one person in particular. So it's going to be more beneficial taking that handcuff, especially if the guys are injury prone, like we know that CMC is.
It's also like if you add in Chuba Hubbard, for example, like Rico Dowdle in your last pick isn't a bad one because he's shown that he can actually come in and take on a full workload. Maybe same with Miles Sanders or something like that, or Jaden Blue for the Cowboys. I mean, one of those guys in a late pick, just holding them to see if they get work in week 1 and what the role actually is. And then again, if they don't work out for you, you can just drop them in week 1. And there's always waivers that pop off after week 1. So you have a true indication of what you can do. I just think using your last pick on handcuffs is not a bad deal. But I wouldn't be using high draft capital to do it. Back to my point.
Yep. So pretty much you're missing on the Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker kind of thing, because Charbonnet is definitely a higher pick in terms of handcuffs. But we'll jump to the next one of the evening, and this one's a little bit funner. I know for me, if I've got an opportunity to get a stack with a quarterback and wide receiver, I just think it's too sexy to pass up. So that, the question is, stacking, is it overrated or underrated? And we'll go to you, DFAB. What are your thoughts?
Criminally underrated. It is the most liberating feeling in fantasy football when you have a stack, let alone an elite stack. Like, look, even with Josh Allen, he's got no real premier passing options. If you've got Kincaid at your tight end spot, you are grinning from ear to ear every single time Josh Allen's throwing the ball in his direction, because it's double points. It just magnifies. It makes so much sense to have a stack where you can. And realistically, there's even in Superflex leagues, you should have at least one non-negotiable. But in redraft leagues, knowing that there's 15, 16 viable QBs that you could start with any degree of confidence on any given week. Most leagues you're looking at 12 teams. There's no reason to not have a stack. It's just, it doubles your points. It magnifies it. There's no reason to not. It's so underrated. Every single team I've got, I want to have a stack.
Mav, fan of the stack, mate?
Yeah, I actually am.
Yeah, of course you are.
Yeah, but it depends on the offense as well, though. Yeah. Like the Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow stack is just elite. A Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb stack is pretty good too. But I won't be stacking Bryce Young and Ted McMillan. Dancy to go the other way. And I won't be stacking Tyler Shuck out of the Saints and Chris Olave. Yeah, I'll only take them in good offenses. That's sort of as far as I go with stacks. Michael Penix and Drake London, I don't know. That's a bit of a hard one. We don't know with Penix this year. Yeah, so you look at McCarthy and Justin Jefferson. That's a stack. There's a lot of question marks with a few QBs, but I'll only take a stack if I know. Like Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans is fucking awesome. Yeah, so I'll only take known commodities. The only one that I would think about or sort of half-ass it is probably Lamar and Zay Flowers is the one that I would go, maybe not. But I'll take the Derrick Henry and Lamar stack though instead. So, yeah, so again, very situational. I really like it when it works, but it can also backfire as well. So I think it's just all about good offenses, taking good offenses and getting the stack in those.
Oh, but man, when it lines up, if you've got, say, Dak and CD as the last two guys of your week in a head-to-head matchup and they go ballistic, like it's
down
just
50.
down 50 and they cover it like no problem. It's just there's nothing sweeter. I just feel like your upside in head-to-head matchups when you've got a stack, it's just on your favor more because you can just play those matchups and you're getting, two for the price of one, kind of, or the bit more bang for your buck. And it just looks so much more appealing on your roster.
Just to quickly add to that, I think for Mav and Demo, you're 100% right. You want to have the right matchup. But I think if we're looking at it, it's easy to say, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase is a great stack to have. And, Dak Prescott and CD Lamb's a great stack to have. But even like if you're one of those teams that likes to essentially punt QB and you're streaming QBs, and let's say you've got a JSN or you do have a Drake London and something like that, you're looking through the waivers trying to find a QB to start that week, take the stack, because if you believe in Drake London, then Penix has to throw to him. There's going to be points there. If you believe in JSN, go get Sam Darnold because he's going to get points. He's got to get the ball from somewhere, right? Yeah, you might not get your 35s, but you at least get a safe floor because if you believe that player is going to get, a 15 to 20 in that week or something like that, they've got to get that production from somewhere. So at least provide you a safe floor if you are going to go with a stack.
It's going to be a nice stack next year. And I might even try and do it at some point just to have a bit of fun. But Geno Smith and Brock Bowers will be a nice little stack. It's dirty, it's filthy, but it's just a bit of fun, right?
Yeah. And I think when it comes to your redraft too, I know for me, if I'm in between two quarterbacks, say Matt Stafford and Geno, but I've got Brock Bowers, I'm just going to take the stack. It's more appealing, 100%. And that's going to be the tiebreaker, without a doubt.
Same with Matt Stafford. He's QB 21 right now, but if you're going against Matt Stafford and Puka Nacua, you are packing Dax going into that week. The stacks are so dangerous. They're so good to have.
Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
100. That's what I mean. There's so many QBs that standalone are just average as all hell, but their value is boosted through the roof if you see them paired with an elite skill position player.
Yeah. And when they hit, they go ballistic.
Dude.
Actually, another fun one's going to be Herbert and McConkey too, just to chuck
mate. Dude, I lost an 82-point lead last year because of Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow stack.
Yeah.
82 points going into Monday Night Football, and I lost. I could not believe it.
That is a league-winning stack, though.
100%. It is, and I gave it up too. I gave up Chase, rookie. Anyway, we live and learn.
But stacks definitely underrated, and if you've got an opportunity to, take it. Leading on to it, we teased a little bit of Brock Bowers talk, but going into the next question of the night, will Brock Bowers finish as the overall tight end one again this year, or does he regress? And we're looking at the landscape of the Raiders. It has changed drastically compared to last year. He's got a above average quarterback in Geno Smith. I'd probably say he's a top 12, probably NFL quarterback in terms of his passing metrics. I'll have to pull up some stats on that one. But yeah, new coach, they've added more weapons around it. He definitely left some production out there on the table. Mav, how are you feeling about Bowers leading into his second year?
Yeah, I do believe he's going to be probably the best. If not, he's going to be definitely top 2. I've got Kittle right up there myself in coming into 2025, so he's going to have some competition there. But outside of Kittle, I think it's his for the taking. He's got an upper at QB with Geno Smith, as you said. The new offense with the new coach is sort of a bit frightening because you just don't know what you're going to get. But at the same time, Pete Carroll's pretty experienced, so you expect it to be pretty much get it to your best offensive weapon. They do have Genty there as well, so Genty will probably see 20 carries a game on average. But I fully expect Brock Bowers being the number one aerial play at the Raiders and should be pretty much he's pretty much nearly a round one lock at this point, which is pretty crazy for a tight end, but he's that talented. It makes sense.
Yeah, and in any one tight end leagues too, he's an absolute difference maker. And rookie year, he broke the record in receptions. He had 153 targets, 112 receptions for just under 1,200 yards and 5 touchdowns. So absolutely phenomenal. You know, first year out, and we hope things get better. DFAB, what's your outlook on Brock Bowers this year? And do you think with him being the tight end one, is that someone that you're kind of targeting, or are you just going to try and wait until you get George Kittle 3 rounds later?
Yeah, I'm not the type to pay hyper premium for tight ends. I've done it once before. It was in my dynasty startup to get Kelsey, and he shat the bed last year. So I flipped my lesson. I think there's a lot more value later on in the draft than going super hard on a guy like a Brock Bowers or a McBride or a Kittle. But I can see why you would do it. Those top 3 kind of stand alone, I think, as the best tight ends in football for fantasy. Brock Bowers, I think the stats would suggest, obviously, he wouldn't repeat. It's hard in any position to go top of table 2 years in a row. But I think people are very quick to forget the thoughts on Seattle when Geno was announced their starter going in. When he first got there, they're like, oh, Seattle's going to be dog shit. They're going to be a dumpster fire. And then they came out and they were a really competent football team because Geno Smith is a very good NFL. He's a game manager, yeah, but he's a very good NFL QB. He's very safe. He likes to throw the ball, and he puts him like he doesn't take undue risks, right? So they manage the game. So you pair that, by far the best QB that Brock Bowers has had in the NFL so far, plus you add Ashton Jennings, who's going to keep the chains moving. Brock Bowers only had 5 touchdowns last year, I believe. That I expect that number to increase. He probably isn't going to have 112 receptions. I don't think it's going to be that high, but he's going to get a lot more than 8 yards per catch. Like it's going to be a less volume for a lot more production. So, do I think he's going to repeat as the number one? The stats would say no, but it doesn't. If I had Brock Bowers, I'd be thrilled. He's going to be an absolute stud yet again. He's going to be someone you'd want on your team.
I actually get mad Rob Gronkowski vibes from Brock Bowers. He's bringing back the tight end position in the first round. I really like it. So, remember those days where Gronk would go first round, like end of the first round, but it'd be first round draft capital. I rate the fact that Brock Bowers is bringing that back in 2025. Well, if it's not first round, it's very, very early second as well. So, I like that.
I am a little bit hesitant just because we've seen last year the Sam Laporta regression year 2. Like he was the one that broke all the records year 1, and he had 120 targets, and then that dropped off by, I'm just looking here, 37 targets the following year, and went from tight end 1 to tight end 7. So it was like quite a substantial drop off.
That's different though.
How so?
The Jamison Williams effect.
No. Yeah. Look, I think it's going to be any of those 4 really. Like Laporta, McBride, Kittle, Bowers are probably going to be your top 4. And if you have any of them, you're going to be likely going to be pleased. But Brock Bowers feels like a safe bet.
Yeah, I know personally for me, I think he repeats. I think it's just given the landscape, he's the clear number 1 option. And just with the quarterback upgrade is just so phenomenal compared to what he was dealing with last year. Like it was just, the likes of Aiden O'Connell, Desmond Ridder, and it was Gardner Minshew. He played a few games there too for the Raiders. So like you're going from that to Geno, and he did all of that under that offense. I just think, the sky's the absolute limit, and this could just be the start of another Kelsey player profile for Bowers, and I think he'll just dominate, be the number 1 guy for years to come. We'll jump to the next one. Tyreek Hill, and this goes in perfectly with the news at the start of the show with Jonnu Smith being traded and vacating 111 targets from last year. Is Tyreek Hill undervalued as the current wide receiver 18 in redraft ADP? And I'll start off with you, Mav.
Yeah, I'll keep this one very short and sharp. I think he is. I've said this a couple of times in the last few episodes. I think he is. Especially now that Jonnu Smith's out of the building. That was a safety blanket, short dink and dunk option there for Tua. Obviously, he's wanting to get the ball out pretty quick. Obviously, the offensive line's been pretty average and everything like that. So I think Tyreek Hill, who was playing through injury last year, will have substantial value at that pick. And if you can get him back to maybe a top 10 wide receiver, that's great value. But yeah, he's getting on an age as well. So he may just be what he is at the moment, but I fully expect him to bounce back. I think he's pretty committed to doing that. And I think him and, I'm going to chuck Waddle in there as well. I think are great options.
Yeah, I think I was sitting on the fence, honestly, before the Jono news, but with him moving on, I'm definitely on that side with you, Mav. I think, yeah, he's going to be a steal at wide receiver 18. And looking at the Dolphins, their defense is absolutely gash. So they're going to be in a whole lot of shootouts. They're going to have to play from behind a whole lot. And the wide receivers are going to be the beneficiaries of that. DFAB, how are you thinking of Tyreek Hill? Is he undervalued at wide receiver 18 currently?
Buy. Look at Tyreek's numbers last year. They're talking about how he's banged up and blah blah blah. Honestly, I think that's all PR. Look at the games when Tua played and when he didn't. When Tua didn't play, I'm just doing a quick count now. There was 6 games he didn't play plus this round 2 when he got hit. So 6.5 games. It was every single one of those games bar one that he scored in single digits. Outside of the games, like when Tua actually played, there was only 2 games where he didn't. 3 games of those others that he played that wasn't at least in double digits. Only one of those below 5. So it's very, very clear that Tyreek's, production is going to be dependent on Tua's health, at least in this offense. And it makes sense when you had the absolute. I don't even remember the bloke's name that was thrown. Like, how many people did they have try to throw at QB last year at the Dolphins? They were an absolute rabble. Like, we think Cleveland's bad this year.
Skylar Thompson.
Miami was Skylar Thompson. There you go. Like, Miami was arguably worse. Like, they couldn't throw it past 5 yards down the field. It was an absolute rabble. So knowing that Tua seems to have his health, of course, you're going to, like I said before, not to just reuse it, but you're going to pinch your nose and grit your teeth through it. But as long as Tua's healthy, Tyreek's going to be an elite wide receiver in fantasy. At worst case scenario, top 24, but I think he has a chance. He's the kind of guy that's explosive enough where he could push and blow everything out of the water and be wide receiver 1 again. He's that good, that explosive, that dynamic. I don't think he's going to. Obviously, that's Devontae Adams, but Tyreek Hill, he's got proper game breaking ability. I don't think he's lost a step. I think he's still very, very talented. It's just dependent on Tua's health.
And I think just looking at potential scenarios, there was talks of Tyreek Hill being traded during the offseason. I'm not ruling that out during midseason. If Dolphins start slow, they're 2-7 or whatnot, I could see him getting traded. But even so, I think he still outproduces that wide receiver 18. I think on any team that you kind of put him into, he probably still produces that in terms of fantasy points per game at that point. So, yeah, undervalued, and definitely Jalen Waddle as well, like you touched on as well, Mav. We've just got a couple more for everybody here tonight. We'll go with the waiver system in a lot of leagues. So there's really 2 main options that people tend to go with. It's the FAB system. You usually get $100 or $1,000 in FAB that lasts you for the entirety of the season. When you put in a waiver, it's a little bit of a bid, silent auction. You don't really know what anybody else is doing. So there's a bit of gambling, I guess, in terms of it. Or there's the waiver priority option where it's usually, I think if you're the first pick of the draft, you get the 12th pick in waiver to start off, and it kind of filters off that way. As soon as you burn your waiver priority, you go to the absolute bottom of the pile, and it all depends on if you're the first and heaps of other people have claimed that same person, you'll get the crack at that guy because you hold that priority. DFAB, what are your thoughts on FAB system versus the priorities in terms of waivers?
FAB for sure. So, but again, for the uninitiated, it stands for free agent auction budget, I believe, or free agent acquisition budget. I think it's definitely the way to go. It actually brings some additional strategy outside of just setting your lineup every week. There's some people that like to go hard at the first big free agent after someone gets hurt. There's some people that like to ignore everything until after the bye rounds and then, make a play then towards finals and stuff like that. And there's definitely, I guess, credence to both approaches. You just pay what you feel a player's worth. So there's no benefiting just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, not paying attention, and then you happen to go and you go, oh sweet, I can pick this guy now. Like you can be impactful every single week, and you can start to mess with your mates and go, yeah, I'm going hard on this guy, and try to talk people out of putting a bid or talk them up on a bid when you don't think someone's worth it. Like it just brings so much more fun to the midweek non-game part of fantasy. I love it. It's so much better.
Yeah, I'm with you. Fab all the way. It adds an extra dynamic and another thing to kind of play for week in, week out. Mav, what side do you sit on in terms
Yeah,
of
Fab all the
running
way.
backs?
And DFAB will actually back me on this one. I actually brought this into our home league a few years ago,
Yeah, you
and we
did.
haven't looked back. It took
Yeah.
some convincing. There was some stubborn
It
blokes in the
did.
chat. But I got him over the line. Superflex is next. But one step at a time. But Fab is amazing. It's definitely a different element to non-fantasy football, like scoring as such. Not only can you actually bid on as a silent auction, you can actually trade for Fab too.
Yeah.
And that can also be a sweetener for someone who hasn't got Fab or blows it in week one on a massive free agent they really liked. There's so many different avenues to how you use your Fab and how you get it back. Yeah, it's just a different strategy. It's good fun. Once you commit, you will not go back.
And just with a little follow up on this question, when it comes to strategies in early on redraft leagues like week 1, week 2, I know looking at last year, we had the likes of not last year, the year before, the likes of Puka Nakua, who was going undrafted. So week 1, he was just the absolute slam run, I guess, target along with Bucky Irving, Kyron Williams. I think he was also in that same year with Puka. When it comes to if a guy like that is kind of out there, are you guys just dropping everything at once, or are you being a little bit more preservative? What's your kind of take, Mav, on spending all your Fab early?
Well, it's hard because they usually pop up in week 1, right? And like they'll start off, it'll be like 50% snap percentage. You think, oh shit, that might just be a week, just a 1 week thing. And then their snap percentage by week 7's increased by about 25%, and they're suddenly the starter, dominating, getting majority of the snaps. Like Chase Brown was another one. I know he was going into drafts, he was getting drafted late, but now he's the RB1 and probably a top 10 RB coming into the year. So I think, especially with running backs who dominate in week 1, I think it's very important if their snap percentage is over 45 to 50% and they look really good and they're young, you buy into that hype straight away. Look, how heavy you go is one thing. I think, again, depending on the player, I'm happy to spend at least 40% on a really good player if you're really like confident. But if it doesn't work out too, it's half your budget gone or nearly half your budget gone. So again, you have to play it wisely. In one of our home leagues last year, someone went big on the tight end at Baltimore.
Likely. Yeah, Isaiah Likely.
Yeah. I think went for like $80 in week 1 and then didn't really do a hell of a lot for the start of the year. So, that's the strategy behind it. But look, Kyron Williams, Puka Nakua, he looked back at it and gone, shit, I should have gone harder.
Yeah, it's just so hard to tell, right? And you're right. The strategy, if you spend all of it now, I know redraft leagues back end of the year, if you're going into playoffs, that you need as much Fab as you can, because running backs in particular, they are the first pieces to drop and get injured at that point of the year. Yeah, I know. I found myself stuck because I went way too hard too early and had nothing to fall back on. DFAB, what are your thoughts on strategy with Fab spending in terms of early year?
I learned the hard way. I think it was 2 years ago when Nick Chubb blew his knee out. So he was my 3rd overall pick or whatever it was, and I stuck with my not having the handcuff because that's always been my approach. And then it was, I believe, Jerome Ford was the guy. This is the one who came in, had his snaps when he was gone, and me being a silly boy, I traded to get another $1 so I could dump 101 on the Nick Chubb replacement because I had too much draft capital in him, and he was average as for the year. Like, they went out and they traded for Kareem Hunt, and Kareem Hunt was snaking all the touchdowns. Jerome Ford finished with 4 touchdowns for the year. Like, it was RB17. I paid 101 in Fab, my entire budget plus some, for a bloke that barely cracked the top 24. So it kind of sells both points, right? Like, for Fab, it's better to exercise caution because very rarely can you mortgage the house and it be that all in on black, and then black comes up on the roulette wheel. And then that's another reason why I don't like taking handcuffs, because you could be sitting there, Nick Chubb goes down, you've held Jerome Ford for 9 weeks, you bring him in, and then they end up bringing in someone externally anyway, and he's got no value. So it's I didn't mean for that to happen, but that's a nice little segue for the boat. So yeah, Fab, I much prefer to be cautious and calculated and try to save it for the back end of the year.
Nothing over 50% in week one.
Oh, even 50% feels like a lot because we're all excited and everyone's like, let everyone else make that mistake. And if they happen to be the one that hit the winning bet, congratulate them. Well done. Yeah. Glad it was you. I'm not making that mistake.
Yeah. It's a long season, and yeah, you definitely need something at the back end going into playoffs because it's bound to happen. You're going to lose a running back, you'll lose a wide receiver, and you're just sitting there with you're emptying your pockets. There's nothing left. You just
how good's getting a good waiver or a good waiver off the FAB system with $1.
Oh mate, there's nothing better. Nothing better. It's so good. It's like, hey, you idiots, you spent too much money. Give me this for nothing. It's the best.
Yeah.
And that's why Fab's the best. It's so much better.
And with the last one of the evening, a little bit different, not so much fantasy related. When I saw this one, I was thinking, is this even a question? Wiping from the front or the back? Now I'm gonna take it as when number twos. Just to put it out there for the people that were thinking about what do you mean? I know for me, I'm not going to spend too much time on my answer, but like, really, like I think front to back is like just the way to go. What are your guys' kind of takes?
So I'll be honest with you, mate. I put this in there as a piss take. I did not think you would actually put it in there, but I'm stoked you have. That's so good. So for me, it's you go around the back. Otherwise, there's like things can get dirty. Like, you got to go from the back. Like, going through the front. There's things in the way. It's just not the play. I couldn't do it.
Mav?
Yeah, I'm a back to front too, mate. If you go front to back, you're actually at risk of getting something on your hand on the way through.
This is some good family friendly content, isn't it, boys?
Yeah, definitely back to front, mate. Less risk.
Hey, just like in fantasy, we want to mitigate risk, guys. Just do it the right way. You don't want anything on your balls for the gentleman out there. But anyhow, we'll pretty much close us off there. Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight with our first mailbag show. Like I mentioned at the start of the episode, if you do have any questions around fantasy, NFL, anything that you want to ask, please drop them in the comments. We'll be checking it all and adding it to upcoming shows. We're going to be continuing to roll out the content each week. When we are definitely getting closer, only 10 Sundays away from NFL start date. We're going to be ramping up the shows, doing multiple shows a week, making sure that you guys have the best access to insight in NFL and helping improve your leagues. Final thoughts from you, Mav, with tonight and heading into the NFL season. We're so close.
Yeah, we are, mate. We are. Our rookie rankings have been done. They'll be on the Patreon within the next few days, I believe. We'll have our player rankings out there as well. Eventually, when it comes close to the season, which would be awesome to put together. I think that's going to be a lot of work, but I think it's going to be very beneficial if you're in the Patreon. Yes, there's going to be some Patreon exclusive leagues as well as some paid leagues for Insight viewers as well. So again, getting the Patreon to be a chance to get into a free league for winning some money. I think that's going to be very important. And also, we're going to be ramping up some content in the Patreon very shortly. We'll have some Patreon exclusive shows in there. I'll have some solos in there as well where I talk about waivers and stuff as I go along with my day. Could be some short little snippets, and we'll be active in the chat in there too. So, NFL fantasy is ramping up to the extreme at the moment. We're 10 Sundays away. So, in a month's time, when training camp is at its peak and drafts are getting created and drafts are actually probably starting, you want to get on the front foot pretty early and not cram it in last second. So it's always good to keep on top of things and keep listening to content because, we're on every week. And just to continue as well, we are going to be on every single day or try to be anyway during drafting season just to get some more content out there and talking about what we like and don't like. And we'll have some special guests along the way from the Insight community to get some different faces and about their opinions and things as well. But I think what the aim here is just to try and get as much talking points for fantasy football as possible. We know, we try and win our own personal leagues, but at the end of the day, we're just talking fantasy football, and that's what we're here for. So,
Yeah, we want to help improve everybody win at the end of the day, and this is going to be the best place for you to get that content. DFAB, signing off from you, mate. What are your final thoughts?
I just want to thank Mav for putting me to sleep. I'm going to go to bed and fall asleep nice and quickly after that one. I'm just excited, mate. Kind of echoing everything Mav said. Like we've been talking a lot behind the scenes about how we want to ramp up content and what our plans look like for the year. And obviously we've got some big plans, going to be investing a lot of time and energy and passion into this stuff. So keen to have everyone along for the ride, and keen to get into leagues and get stuck into draft season. Realistically, with 7 Sundays to go, give it a month and we are deep into draft season. So we are so fucking close. I can't wait. And I'm now forever calling Damo shitballs.
We'll talk about that off air, mate. But yeah, guys, if you like the content, please like, subscribe, and even just chuck us a comment. We're going to be answering everything on this video afterwards. And the best free way to support us is, like I mentioned, like, subscribing, leaving us a nice little 5-star review on Spotify or wherever you're watching your podcast. And we'll be back next week. That'll do us here tonight from the Insight NFL team. We'll see you guys later.
See you guys.